Okay, let's dive into this because today we're going to completely flip everything you thought you knew about human behavior totally on its head. Welcome to The Explainer. So, I want you to picture a scenario for a second. Someone's standing right in front of you, and you've got this nagging gut suspicion that they are just not telling you the truth. What's your immediate instinct? Like, what do you actually do to figure out if they're lying? If you're like, wow, almost every single person on the planet, you probably rely on a very specific set of built in assumptions. So let me ask you directly, how do you spot a liar? Do you immediately start scrutinizing their face, looking for those darting eyes, maybe watching for a bead of sweat forming on their forehead? Or are you watching their hands to see if they're fidgeting, or checking to see if they can maintain solid, unbroken eye contact? We've all been taught this, right? I mean, it's in literally every movie interrogation scene ever made. It's conventional wisdom. It's practically baked into our culture at this point. But here is the massive myth-buster hook for you today. Science is telling us that our intuition, it's entirely wrong. I'm just going to put this as bluntly as possible. Relying on visual cues and looking someone right in the eye is actively making you worse at spotting liars. Yep. When you lock eyes with someone, trying to play detective by watching their facial expressions, you are actually falling into a biological trap. The scientific reality is that if you truly, genuinely want to know if someone is deceiving you, you need to stop looking at them and start listening to their voice. To understand why our eyes deceive us so terribly, we've got to look at some seriously groundbreaking research from Portsmouth University. Researchers there wanted to test this exact phenomenon. So they set up simulated suspect interviews. You know, those high-stakes conversations where people were actively, purposefully trying to deceive the interviewer. Then they split the people trying to spot the lies into two distinct groups. One group got the standard treatment. They could see the suspect and they could hear them. But the other group, they were entirely stripped of all visual information. They could only listen to the audio of the interview. So the crucial point is, the result of stripping away that visual data were absolutely wild. The group that was entirely blind to the visual cues, the folks who only had the audio to rely on, achieved a surprisingly high 61.7% success rate in detecting deception. Now, you might be thinking, okay, a little over 60%, sure, that's better than a coin flip, but is it really a game changer? Well, it becomes absolutely staggering when you compare it to the people who had access to the full picture. And this brilliantly illustrates the real shocker. When researchers compared the two groups, the contrast was just stark. When visual data was introduced, meaning when participants could actually see the suspect's face, their body language, their eye contact, their accuracy rate plummeted to a dismal 35%. Think about what this actually means in practice. Having more information, seeing the person's face, made the participants dramatically fail at spotting the lie. I mean, watching the face drop their success rate by nearly half. No way, right? So the big question we have to ask ourselves here is, why? Why does seeing someone make us so easily fooled? Well, the answer comes down to a phenomenon known as cognitive overload. Think of your brain kind of like a computer processor. It's incredibly powerful, sure, but it definitely has a bandwidth limit. When you're sitting face-to-face with someone, your brain is trying to simultaneously analyze their facial microexpressions, their posture, what the heck they're doing with their hands, and maintain social eye contact, all while trying to process the actual words they're saying. It is simply too much information all at once. Because the brain is completely overwhelmed by this tsunami of visual data, it's forced to drop certain processes just to keep up. And what it usually drops, unfortunately, is its attention to the subtle, vital auditory red flags that are actually exposing the lie. Which brings us to some incredibly fascinating neurology out of University College London. If we want to fully grasp why ignoring the face works so well, we really need to understand why the voice is so revealing in the first place. The researchers at UCL have completely reframed how we should even think about human speech. Professor Sophie Scott from UCL uses this vivid, honestly just perfect metaphor. She says, the voice is an instrument, like a ukulele or violin. It makes so much sense when you think about it. Just as a violin produces a totally different sound based on the type of wood it's made of, the exact shape of its body, and how tightly those strings are pulled, well, your voice is entirely dependent on the physical materials of your body. Your physical body is the instrument shaping the sounds you produce, and any change in your body literally changes the instrument itself. So what alters your vocal instrument? Turns out, practically everything. Your vocal tract length naturally dictates your bass pitch. If you have vocal cord inflammation from a cold, the vibration changes entirely. Even the physical shape of a smile alters the acoustic space in your mouth, giving the voice a demonstrably warmer tone that we can subconsciously hear. But here is the absolute most important one for spotting a liar. the fight or flight response. You see, the stress of telling a lie triggers an involuntary nervous system reaction. This stress causes the muscles around the throat to tighten up. You literally can't control it. And when those muscles tighten, the strings of your vocal instrument are pulled taut, causing a slightly higher pitch, a weird change in rhythm, or even a microscopic tremble. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, okay, but am I really capable of hearing a microscopic tremble in someone's throat muscles? Well, the research says yes. Your brain is actually custom built for it. We shift now to research from Professor Silke Paulman at Essex University, which highlights the truly astonishing speed at which our brains process this vocal instrument. Get this, it takes a mere 200 milliseconds for our brain to evaluate vocal cues. 200 milliseconds. That is quite literally the blink of an eye. Long before your conscious mind has even comprehended the actual meaning of the words someone is speaking to you, your brain has already analyzed the acoustic data. It's already sensed the muscle tension, the distance, the warmth, or the anxiety hiding in the speaker's voice. Your brain is a lightning-fast lie detector, but only if you give it the bandwidth to actually listen. Now, what's really interesting about this is, as incredible as this biological system is, we do have to introduce a crucial scientific caveat here. The voice is not perfect. We've got to be very careful not to oversimplify this whole thing. The voice is an incredibly fluid medium. It's constantly changing based on our environment and our internal state. It is definitely not a fixed, unarguable piece of evidence like, say, a DNA swab or a fingerprint. We have to ground this in reality for a second. The exact same throat tension and pitch changes that are caused by the stress of deception, yeah, they can also be caused by entirely innocent factors. An innocent person's voice can shake simply because they have social anxiety, or because they're intimidated by the conversation, or honestly just because they are utterly exhausted. There is no single magical vocal sign that equates to a 100% confirmed lie. The researchers stress that we can't just say, oh, high pitch equals liar. It's more about looking for unnatural fluctuations from their normal baseline rather than just pointing out one isolated trait. So, what does all this mean for you? How do you actually use this information the next time you're in a high-stakes conversation or a tough negotiation, or, hey, just trying to figure out if your teenager is telling the truth? Well, we are going to introduce a practical, science-backed detective technique that you can start using literally today. Let's move to and see how this builds into a concrete two-step procedure you can use in your very next encounter. Step 1 is definitely the hardest part because it goes against all your basic human instincts. Look away from their face. Just break eye contact. You don't have to awkwardly turn your back on them or anything, but look down at your notebook, stare at the table, or even just close your eyes for a brief second if you have to. Cut off that visual data feed that is overloading your processor. Then, step 2, with your visual cortex quieted down, listen. Listen closely to the instrument. Don't just listen to the words they're saying, listen to the music of their speech. Are there sudden, unexplained fluctuations in their pitch? Are there unnatural pauses where there really shouldn't be? Has the rhythm of their speech suddenly shifted gears? So the next time you find yourself aggressively staring someone down, trying to read their poker face, I want you to remember this explainer. I want you to stop, take a breath, and ask yourself this one simple question. While you're busy watching their face, what secrets is their voice already spilling? The truth is out there, but you might just have to look away to finally hear it. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and I highly encourage you to go test out your brand new auditory superpower in the real world.